Hello and welcome to another Purveyor of Light Photoshop Quick Tip. Today we're going to have another creative edit. This one's going to be involved here with the creation of realistic water droplets. Anybody that's been a photographer for any length of time, especially doing flowers and that, macro shots and that, know how much a shot can be enhanced by spraying it with water droplets, and that it just takes your photo to the next level. So what I'm referring to is something like this. Okay, it's the same flower, but this one here was sprayed with water droplets. And in fact, when I go out, I have a little spray bottle with glycerin, and I spray the flower down with a little water and glycerin, and then I take the photograph. And it just adds so much depth and interest into the photo. So here I have a nice photo, wild orchid, and darn it, it doesn't have the water interest. And I said, but we could probably simulate it, and I'm going to show you that today. So let's jump right in. Okay, so first things first, I am going to need to look at a water droplet here for a second. And if you look at the water droplets, okay, I'm going to really zoom in here. You can see that the water droplets actually have a dark and a light side, giving it that, round curvature, right? And a little bit of highlight in there. And so we need to simulate these shadows and these highlights in order to pull off a realistic. So let's start out simple. Let's come up to our tools and let's select from the rectangle, let's select the elliptical tool. Okay. And I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit, and I am going to select a spot, and I'm going to hold the shift key down. And that's going to help me draw out a perfect circle. So holding the shift key down, I just draw out a circle. And I make it approximately that big. Okay, you can make it any size you wish, okay? And so that works out well. I'm going to go to a new layer, and I'm going to push a new layer here. So I hit the plus sign, hit a new layer, so I have a blank layer. And now I want to go to the gradient tool, okay? And I want you to make sure, okay, that your colors are black and white, okay? If they're not, press the D key. That'll set them up as the defaults. And then I want you to pull down and make sure you have, under the Basics tab, okay, you may look at yours and see it with just these closed folders. Go into the Basics and make sure that you're on black and white. Okay, it's very important. All right, so that's going to give us our gradient that we want. And now just outside of the circle that we have selected, I'm going to hold the shift key down again, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line out. Okay, so we pull a gradient over our thing, and I'll zoom in here so you can see better what we're doing. But we actually have a gradient over that. So I'm going to deselect. And you can see we actually have like a raised dome or a planet, whichever your imagination works with. But that's basically the whole thing about light, is when you really concentrate on light, you can see that light is nothing more than a combination of light and shadows. And using those two features, you can make any shape in the universe. So, all right, so now we have our little gray looking planet. And so the next step is, what else did we see in the water? Well, we saw shadows and we saw highlights. So we're going to come in here and we're going to, on the layer here, we're going to do some special features. We're going to open it up. We're going to do a drop shadow. Okay. So we're going to do a drop shadow. And again, that's going to be completely up to what you Okay, so again, it's going to be on the resolution of your photo. So just move it around till you get the look that we're looking for a good shadow. And I think that looks pretty good. And I'm using, make sure global light is turned off here, okay? You don't want that. Notice how global light is dictating the shadow direction? We don't want that. We want to direct the shadow ourselves. Okay, so we're going to want ours at 130. Okay, so it's the dark and the shadow. And distance, let's see, that pulls how far apart it is. And I'm thinking 15 looks pretty good. Again, these numbers really don't mean much. You have to just do it by eye because the resolution of your photo is going to be different than the photo I'm working on. Spread 0 and this, and I'm happy with this little drop shadow. So turning it off and turning it on, that looks good to me. And so the next thing I need to do is we need to bring in a inner shadow, okay, because we want it to look like a water droplet resting on the surface, right? So inner shadow, and we're going to do linear burn as our blend mode. And let's see, again, make sure your global light is off. And so let's see here, we're going to do linear burn, and we're going to move our opacity. Oh, I just screwed up there. I went through all that trouble to do that, and I'm changing my drop shadow again. So, cancel. All right, start this over again. I apologize. It goes to show you I'm human too. All right, so back to drop shadow. You have to make sure you're selected on whatever you're working at, so I wound up overriding my settings for the other one. Okay, so for drop shadow, I am going to select that. Going to do linear burn, opacity of 20. Yeah, so 20. Global light is off, and we're doing 130 on the direction. Okay, and 15 on the distance and 14 on the space. Okay, so that takes care of our drop shadow. Okay, so we turn that on and off. We can see we now have the shadow in place. So open up the effects again by double clicking, and this time instead of a drop shadow we are going to do a inner shadow. So make sure you're selected with it. And now we're on that. So linear burn again. We're going to do a direction of -30. 2 pixels, 0 choke, 0.5. That looks pretty good. And I can turn on the preview here. You could just say that it makes it more button-like. Okay? All right, so that looks good. We make that. Okay, so now we have a pretty good realistic shape on our picture. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to fulfill the purpose of the highlight. All right, so I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this one highlight, so I can keep that straight in my head. And I'm going to come up to my paintbrush, and I'm going to be using a soft brush very soft brush, and the size is going to have to be just about the size of the highlight that I want to have. So using the square brackets, I'm sizing it up to the size I want that highlight to be. Okay, approximately there. And I want to be painting in white, so I'll switch the colors here. So now with white, now I just want to dab it. I want to dab it just once with this highlight color. Okay, so I want the highlight approximately there. And there we are. Okay, so now you see, just by dabbing that, almost you go, wow, it's almost now looking like a clear globe or a crystal ball or something. All because we put a dab of a highlight. Okay, our eyes are easily fooled. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Now going back onto the layer of the actual water droplet, I'm going to label it that too. All right, so now we know what that is. We have a droplet layer and we have a highlight layer. On the droplet layer, the only thing we need to do is to make this thing realistic, okay, is to change the blend mode. And to do that, we are going to come up and change our blend mode to overlay. And voila, there we are. We now have a realistic water droplet. Okay? And now the rest is just downhill and up to your creativity. So I'm going to take the two layers here, the highlight and the droplet, hold the shift key down, highlight both of them, and then I'm going to put them in a group. Okay? And that one group is going to signify this water droplet. So, what if you wanted to have more than one? Which of course you would. We just Command or Control J on the group and we can make duplicates. So let's do that 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Click on the first group and we just use the move tool and we move it out. The next one, move the move tool, we move it out. And the next one, we take it and we move it out. Okay? And that's as easy as it is. You can get creative. Now, of course, we would never, as professionals, leave it like this. We would add some variety and some reality to it. We would make these different sized droplets because, rain comes in different droplets, big and small. So I just select the one thing, one line, one group, and I hit Command and Control T. And now I can transform it to any size that I want. Look at that. Boom. Just like that. And I hit the next one, Command and Control T. And I could make it bigger. And the next group is this one, okay? Command and Control T. And I could make it smaller. Boom. Okay? And now you can see we have all the variety and all the things, and we can just be creative. All right. So now, maybe you want even an additional level of reality, and that is, I don't want all my raindrops perfect circles. Not a problem. Okay? So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to get confused. There we go. I'm going to go with this one here. Yeah. All right, so this guy here, this big guy, I'm selected on him, and now I want to make him irregular. Okay, I don't want him to be a perfect circle. So I'm going to open up the group. Okay, and inside the group, of course, we have our 2 layers. I'm going to select the droplet. Okay, and I want you to do a Command and Control and clicking on the layer. That automatically puts a selection around the water droplet. Okay? So just remember that when you want to work on things, just make sure you have the area selected. So now all we do is we can do a filter, and then we could do liquefy. And we can come in and zoom here, but we can just liquefy, select the first brush, and we can just distort this however we want. There's a distortion. There we go. Hit OK. And now, look, now we have a distorted water droplet, and we can make things very realistically. Okay, one last thing if you're a perfectionist, right? I've given you all the techniques to make artificial raindrops, but let's take one thing. What happens when water hits and there's a droplet on something? It has a magnification effect, okay? So what we want to do is we want to simulate that magnification. When water lands on something, it acts as a lens and makes it magnify underneath that water droplet. So let's go ahead and recreate that. So on the background layer, select it, and Command and Control J to duplicate it. Okay, so now on that duplicate layer, okay, I'm going to select the water droplet, Control and hold, click, right? But now I'm going to go back onto my duplicate layer, and I'm going to now go up to filter, and then I'm going to go distort. Oh, I hate this update. Every time the Adobe updates things now, they put things. I apologize, but they have somehow moved my. With that selected, hit show all menus because it's not showing, and now distort appears. Okay, and then we just gotta turn around and we're gonna go to spherize. All right, and we take that, and it's got the shape, and you notice it's causing a magnification when we do the spherize, and we click that, and there it distorts inside. It distorts it. Okay, so if I go back and undo, you can see there's the normal, and then if I just do my spherize, it actually does the magnification. Okay, and then you could do that for every one of your water droplets. So there you go. Until next week, you guys take care.